So this is the first real project of the season for me. I am down in our little camp area in a very shady section of our property that I've been doing a lot of testing down here. And I believe it's already been 3 years since I originally planted this. So all that stuff is on my channel as far as the original planting down here and all that work that I did. It was an absolute jungle down here before we got this thing cleaned out. There's a couple of things that have been going on with the original grass that I planted and a few other things that I have tested around this area that tells me that I might want to make some changes, and that's what I'm going to do today. First and foremost, this is predominantly now a fine fescue yard. This is my elite shade mix that is down here. It's just starting to green up now, and my plan is to do a little bit of work to it while I still have no tree cover down here because the buds are just starting to come out on the trees. I want to try to get that extra sunlight and extra heat that's going to be happening in the next, hopefully, a couple weeks here before all of the trees get full, and I'm back to having a very shady section down here. What I have learned about the fine fescue over the past couple seasons has been it's performed really nicely for me down here, except that I get a lot of traffic. This is obviously an area that has no irrigation. We've had a lot of dry seasons in the past few years, and we've had a lot of tough conditions for grass in general. Now, fine fescue is very good at getting through those drought conditions and surviving all of that stuff. It doesn't look great in the middle of summer, but it goes kind of a dormant brown color and then it comes back. But at that same time, if I have a lot of traffic, which I have from deer and other animals down here, but mostly deer, then it gets difficult to try to maintain it. Also, I have one section right here that I'll show you that is so shady. It basically gets no sunlight during most of the season once everything leaves out. But I'm starting to have moss take over, and that's usually what happens. Anywhere that you have shade, you're going to get extra moisture when it rains because it's not drying out as fast with the sun, and moss will start to be something that takes over an area. Now, it's really up to you at that point if you want to let it go and just let it be natural and be what it is, or if you can try a process, which I'm going to do today, to remove a little bit of it if I can, try to get some grass seed growing in there, and try to do my best to get any more light to these areas if possible as well. Now, I'm not going to be able to do that in some of these sections, but I am going to try adding some tall fescue to this yard. Now, the reason that I'm going to do that is because with all the shade testing that I've been able to do down here, the tall fescue has performed nearly the same as the fine fescue in dense shade. This is my elite tall fescue that I've been testing for about 3 seasons now down here. And as far as traffic tolerance goes, the tall fescue will be a little more traffic tolerant, hopefully, and is most likely not going to go dormant quite as quickly as this fine fescue would in the summertime. So this is not bad as far as thickness goes now. It's not really like I have to do something to it, but I'm going to add some tall fescue to it just as an experiment, one for me to see. I love doing these experiments to see how things go. Usually tall fescue texture and fine fescue wouldn't go great together, but this is an area where I just want great grass coverage, and I don't care so much about if it absolutely looks perfect aesthetically with just one type of grass. I would rather have coverage and something that can stand up to this deer traffic if I can make that happen. So that's what I'm going to experiment with, and that's what I'm going to work on today, a pretty easy process of overseeding this area. So let's get to it. You're not going to be able to see this great probably on camera, but I did dense shade testing here over the past couple seasons. This is ryegrass in front of us, and then there's some bluegrass over there. But right next to that, right up in that section, right there, have the exact same amount of shade that happens for most of the season, because you can see these trees up here. As soon as these get full, then this whole thing is shaded all of the time. So there's good canopy here to test this, and the tall fescue has been doing great over there. After all the trees are in right here too, in this section, it has also been doing fantastic over there. The nice thing about shade is that you don't get as much sun intensity and things don't dry out as fast, and it can actually be a benefit if you get the right grasses in there that will survive it and do well. First things first today, then I have a ton of limbs that I need to clean up. Not a very fun task, but I need to get down here and clean all that up before I can do some cleanup mowing. Okay, so I'm going to start over here in the shadiest section. You can actually see this is a pretty good example today, that even though we don't have any leaf cover on the trees yet, you can see just how much shade is in this little section. Of course, it's getting filtered light, but even right now when there's no leaves on the trees, this is about how much it gets. So you can probably imagine that once these trees over here get full and the sun gets a little bit higher in the sky as it gets to midsummer, the canopy, there's just nothing that really happens here. So like I said, how much this is gonna work as far as growing anything here long-term that's consistent except for moss is yet to be seen. But you just get into these situations where you give it a try and see what you can do. So today I have one of of these sharp tine rakes right here, and I don't have a dethatcher that I can really use down here because I don't have any power, and I had a little electric one, but I don't have any power down here. Of course, I could run my generator down here, but it's just easier to do it the old school method of raking some of this moss out. And what I want to do with that is just try to remove as much of it as I can to give the grass a little bit more of a head start and try to compete with it before it likely comes back, at least in some capacity. I did a little test section over there, and it actually comes out of here pretty good with this rake, so let's get going on it. Well, you can see once we start getting rid of that moss that there's just not much grass left in here at all. You're just trying to get rid of as much as you possibly can to give it a head start on the grass seed growing in. So there's what I ended up with after the raking. Not every little bit is out of there, but I think it's going to give me enough space to hopefully get some good grass growing in there, and we'll just see how it plays out. So now I want to set my mower basically as low as I can get it to go without hitting the blade into the dirt a whole bunch of times. So what that is for you, I don't know. This is definitely not extremely level by any means, so I'll just go probably the second notch from lowest and just see where that leaves us. If I can go any lower, I will, just to clean up everything that's here. Also, make sure that you can get that seed down to the soil when you do the seeding part, which is coming up. Cleanup mow is done, and even that, you can tell, just makes things look nice and tidy. Now if you kind of look at a general look at the lawn a little closer after that, you can see I do have quite a few spots in here. There was a lot of raccoon damage last year too, where they come in and dig a spot. Usually it leaves a little mound and then it gets pushed over like this, and you end up with some spots like that too. But so if you were to just throw your seed out, you can see that there's probably some space where some things would grow in, and that would be kind of the really, really easy way to do it, but probably not the best as far as the long-term results. So what I'm gonna do next is Knorr Aerate. I actually found this aerator used just a couple seasons ago for a really good price, so I picked that up. It's been very handy for me, but you can go to a rental place, hardware store, get a Knorr aerator for a fairly cheap rental. But I think it's a good process when you're doing an overseed, especially in an area like this where it's going to be left to whatever rainfall we get. Putting that soil up there helps to get a little more seed to soil contact as the cores start to break down over time if you don't drag them. I may drag them today, we'll see. But as they start to break down, they're going to leave just a light top dressing on the top of the lawn there with the seed as well. And it just helps to get better results when you're doing an overseeding project. So it's not the most fun thing on the muscles, and you can hire someone to do this too, usually, if you would like that done. But today I'm going to get to work doing some core aeration on this section, give me a better seed bed before I get that seed down. So I got the aeration done. It actually wasn't too bad today because the ground had just about the perfect amount of moisture in it. You don't want it too sticky, which was just close to being just slightly too wet, but it was actually right about the right spot where if it's too dry, you're not going to be able to get the aerator into the ground very easily. It's going to bounce around on you a lot, and that's when it's definitely not very fun. But today I was able to pretty much just drive this thing and not have to put too much arm muscle into it to get it to move around this area. So I got quite a few cores out of here, pulled about 3-inch core out of there, which is definitely good enough for what I need to do today. That process is done, and on to getting the seed down. So as I said today, I'm using my Elite Turf Type Tall Fescue blend here. I had a 10-pound bag that was actually opened, but this is 4,000 square feet roughly down there. Probably put down about 5 pounds per 1,000, so that would be 20 pounds that I need total. So I can use this whole bag and then get another 10 pounds out of a larger bag. A lot of people ask me about spreader settings. It's very difficult to give an exact spreader setting for grass seed because the seeds are different sizes. You might walk a different speed than I do. Also, your spreader might just be calibrated slightly different than mine is. So what I like to do is get a good flow coming out with a low setting on your spreader. So set it to where you're getting enough flow out, but it's fairly slow. And then just walk the area multiple times, getting even coverage over it. It would be better to walk and walk and walk. I know that's not fun, but it'd be better to get even coverage over everything and not start with your spreader on too high of a setting and all of a sudden put down a whole bunch of seed all in one spot. So that's the way that I recommend for people to do the seeding. And that just also ensures better results at the end, that you're gonna get great even coverage over everything. This next step is optional. You do not have to do this for results, but because the moisture in these cores today was pretty much just right, I have a little drag that I can take around here and try to break them up. If you let them get dried out, they're going to get hard as a rock and it's not going to work. Very specific time frame here where if you can break them up, you might even be able to do it by hand with a rake and just kind of go around and try to break them up a little bit. It just depends on your soil, depends on the moisture level in those cores. But I did have a drag flipped over so that is just flat. I took that around here and I broke up as many of the cores as possible. So I put down half of the seed first, broke down those cores to hopefully put just that little bit of top dressing on top of the seed. Put the rest of the seed down now, and that will be pretty much it. Now, talking about fertilizer for this area, I'm not going to be putting anything down right now because I just don't know exactly when this new tall fescue that I'm putting down is going to germinate. We do have some warmer temperatures coming up, but we're also in that time frame where it's kind of a yo-yo act where it gets warmer and cooler and warmer and cooler. So I just don't know exactly when this is going to germinate. I don't know what kind of rainfall we're going to get in between there, and it's all really up to that at this point. So I don't want to put down the fertilizer, get some rainfall, and have this existing grass that's here start to really accelerate growth at that point, and then just not give the new seed a chance to get going. So I'll get some fertilizer on it probably sometime in May after everything gets growing, and we'll see what it looks like at that point. I'll make sure to do some updates along the way just when we see what the results are, but this is a process I've done many times before. Actually, last spring did this exact process on some ryegrass, so I will link that video here too if you want to see a similar process to a different type of grass. But stay tuned for the results of this as we go later on, and thank you so much for watching today. We'll see you next time.